that who?
Kimor.
Oh,
Gamble?
Kamori Gamble.
Kamori
Yeah, okay.
What he kind of brings to the tight end room for you guys, and what kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, so Kamori obviously has a lot of experience. Has played a lot of reps of college football. So with him and Alec Holler in that room together, you feel pretty good about having a good 1-2 punch. He is very good in the passing game, does a great job with the ball in his hand, has come in and molded really well with the room. And that's always the question when you have new guys come in, is how are they going to fit into the unit. And he's been unselfish. He's been humble enough to know, hey, I got to learn a new system. And he's taking coaching really well. And he's a guy that's going to make some plays for us this year.
That leadership quality, being a senior, I asked him about when do you feel the need, when you can come in somewhere, how do you don't want to overwhelm your new teammates, with your knowledge. I mean, what have you seen from that aspect of being maybe kind of giving his advice when it needs to be given, I guess?
Yeah, I think at this point in time, he's still learning our system. And it's hard sometimes for guys to just really exert themselves as leaders when they're still in that learning process. But he's a lead by example guy. He shows up, he does what he's asked to do. He takes coaching really well. You can coach him hard. He came here because he wanted to give himself a shot to one more year to try to improve his draft status, and so to do that he has to make plays, and to make plays you got to be fully aware and understand the process and the system, and I think he's a guy that's trying to work through that. But he's been a good leader in our room. Alec Holler's been a good leader in our room. Zach Wojjan's another guy. So we got 3 guys that are already college graduates in that one room. So a lot of older guys, mature guys, and that's been really good for us.
How much of that is it a big leap to go from one system to another, like for him to go to from Florida here? Is it more just terminology, or is it really kind of maybe understanding totally different aspects?
Yeah, it's really more of the terminology, but also the standards and expectations. And every coach is a little bit different. And Coach Malzahn has a very set way of doing things and how he wants things done. And our job as his assistant coaches is to uphold that standard, and then the player's job is to get to the standard. And so Kamori's done a great job with that. He has been great, no issues at all with him as far as integrating himself into our room and into our program. And so for him, it's just a terminology thing, because what we call something may be different than what they called it somewhere else. And then if it's the same language but it meant a different thing at another place, then you got to now forget what you've learned for 4 years and now turn around and learn it as it's something else. So a little bit of battle in that, but I don't think that's natural. But he's done a really good job. It was good to have him here in the spring and to get that foundation to it.
So you mentioned how Kamori and Alec can make for a good 1-2 punch. So do you think that we could see some 2 tight end sets, or do you think there's a bit of a tight end battle as well as a quarterback battle, or how would you view that?
I don't see the tight end as a battle. I think what I always tell our guys is we don't have starters, we have standards, and if you get to the standard, then you'll play. And so we will play some 2 tight end sets. Coach Malzahn's always done that. We did that some last year with Jake Hescock and Alec. And then obviously when you're able to play with 2 guys that have the experience that Alec and Kamori have the talent that both of those guys have, that obviously gives you some different things that you can do offensively to take advantage of maybe how a defense is playing.
As far as the special teams goes, you've had, with Osteen, Obarski, and Ward, these guys have been around each other for several years. So how would you say that that's a really big asset going into this season?
Yeah, no doubt. Those guys are really close, and they've got a long-time friendship. They've been through a lot of ups and downs together. They've been there with each other through all of those things, and it's just like a family. The longer you're together, the closer you grow. And so it's a comforting thing for us to have guys that have that much experience under their belt, for sure.
What would you say is the biggest standout from the people you brought in? Because now that, the 3 of them are obviously, upperclassmen, and so now you're bringing in a couple of younger guys that'll be kind of taking the reins once they move on. So who has stood out to you among those people that have come in?
Well, I mean, you're always in a development mode in college football. You're recruiting guys and you're trying to develop them, and then obviously the transfer portal has changed a little bit of that. But as a coach, we're always in the process of trying to develop them. So we bring in players and we want to put them in a position, one, to find out what they're capable of doing, and then where we need to get them to from where they are today. you do that through your coaches and you do that through your peers. So we've got a young long snapper in Aiden Fettigan that's going to be really good here, but he's got the best guy in the country teaching him, molding him, that he gets a chance to work with. And then we talked to him about that, like how valuable is it that you got a guy that's the best in the country to learn from. And then you're also trying to create competition with some of that. And that was one of the things I wanted to do when I got here with the specialists is let's create a level of competition like we do at quarterback, like we do at tight end, like we do at linebacker. Those guys got to compete. And so Colton Boomer's a guy that's come in and he's competing with Daniel Lobarski, and it's a healthy competition. We brought in an Australian punter that's competing with Andrew Osteen, and all it's doing is making both of those guys the best version of themselves.
What is it? This seems to be I don't want to say a trend, but Australian punters have been something that's kind of gone on for a while there. What's been the attraction? I mean, and how hard is it to recruit someone from Australia?
Well, the recruiting process is definitely different than what we do here, just because of the time and this. I've had a lot of late nights and early mornings, I can tell you that. But the biggest thing is for those guys, that's what they grew up doing. They've done it all their whole life. Really, in the Australian rules football game, they do so much of the carryover in talent and skill is very similar. And then what it does in a football game is you've got a couple of different ways now that you can punt. So you can move the launch point of the punt, which is I think for a special teams guy, it changes the launch point. So now they can't rush the same spot every time. And then just trying to use those things to your advantage. And so that's kind of been the big thing. The roll punts from a protection standpoint, being able to work that, I think is kind of what you started to see in terms of college football nowadays.
In that situation, do you feel like you're recruiting a lot more against Division I coaches? I mean, when you look at Australian players, do you feel like a lot more than maybe you would have, let's say, 10 years ago when you?
Oh, I would say for sure. Yeah. But they have training groups over there now that are training them. The biggest thing is when they get here, the acclimation to go into a new country. Yeah. Terminology, is a big difference because we use words in the game of football that they have no clue. They've never heard of. They may have heard the word, but it may have meant something completely different. Yeah. And they may not know what out of bounds is. You know what I mean? And so anyway, that's probably their biggest challenge. And then the other challenge is like they never have anybody rush them and trying to hit them. As they're training, they're usually in a field somewhere working the skill, and they have that. In the leg strength, they have that. But actually putting them in the fire and having people rush at them, there's really no way to simulate that.
Coach, what would you say is the difference that you want to see in the specialists and the tight ends at the end of the year that maybe you aren't seeing now? Like, what's the biggest thing that you want to see them do before the end of the year, both rooms?
Well, I just want a great consistency. I want to know what we're getting every time we put them out there, whether it be a specialist or a tight end. I want our guys to be this, we obviously want to see improvement, but I want our tight ends to be able to be guys that can make plays for our team. Not just support players, but guys that are able to make game-changing plays for our team. And then from the specialists, we want guys that are completely consistent, that we put them out there and we know that if we're kicking a field goal, we feel very good that thing's going to be made. If we're punting, we're going to put the ball in the right spot so that our coverage team can get down there. Kickoffs, same way. And so there's some very specific things. And, kicking's like playing golf. It's hard. Sometimes you miss the fairway, but for us, we're trying to get to be perfect.